I'd like to pick up on this issue of values, which is really a way of getting insight into one's personal motivation, and something that a lot of people actually don't know how to do. I mean, it's common in the recruitment industry to say, personal motivation is the one thing it's really hard to find out at an interview. So if you can do this for yourself and articulate it to other people, whether they ask you or not, you've really got a competitive advantage, whether that's in an entrepreneurial context or whether it's looking for a job. So let me say a little bit about the process for finding your values. Your values are about the things that you really want and you believe in. And I'm going to take you through a 3-stage process for identifying your top values and getting real insight as to how this predicts your behaviour and sustainability in behaviour. There's 3 parts to the value elicitation process. The first is to actually identify your values. That's called eliciting them, and it means creating a list, answering the question, what is important to you about? You're filling in the about. So if it's creating a company, it would be what's important to you about creating your own company. And you list these. You continue the list until you have one of the following. Either at least 8 items, till you have gone through a couple of sensations of feeling blank, like I've said everything there was, I have no answer, and then you've started generating new answers, or until the list is really beginning to repeat again. At that point in time, you ask yourself 2 final questions. And the questions are these. The first is, if I was to create my own company, what would make me give up on that? What would make me walk away from it? And the second question is, if I had walked away from my own company, what would make me take it up again? We ask these questions just to check that we really have done enough deep digging into what's important to you in that context. Once you've generated the list, the next task is to prioritize the list. And that again is a very simple process. It requires you to be iterative, and it requires you to be quite focused in that iteration. And I'm going to give you the question. The question is, looking at your list of values, if I could only have one thing from this list, which is the one thing I would choose? And then obviously, the first time you ask the question, that's your number 1, and you take it off the list. And you repeat the question. If I could have one more thing, but only one more thing, which would I choose? And you go on down the list until all of them have either been prioritised or you've taken them off the list because you realise it's a repeat. You now have a list of prioritised values. But I want you to think about a minute about the power of priority. And I want you to consider 2 people. We're going to call them Joe and Jan. Now, they have the same values list. They both value adventure, money, fun, and safety. But I have a question for you. Is there any difference, or who would you prefer to work with, if I tell you that Joe, if he joins your venture, loves fun, loves adventure, really wants to make a lot of money, and is concerned about safety? Jan, on the other hand, same set of top values, but they're prioritised differently. Jan is concerned with safety. Would like to make money, adventure is fine, and yeah, fun is nice when it comes along. Does it make a difference? Do you have an orientation towards choosing one or 2 of these other people? I hope I have just demonstrated to you that prioritising your values is different, and it gives you a massive insight as to somebody's likely performance, their likely orientation, and also, in some context, when you're likely to see that sustainable. And that leads me into the idea of towards and away from motivation. If somebody, say when we talked about Jan's top criteria was safety. But if that's about avoiding risk, maybe expect Jan to be somebody who stops-starts all the time. And that basically is the process of value elicitation.